All right, folks, welcome back into Buffalo Game Day Recap. Recapping an eventful and emotional, a historic game as the Bills close out the regular season with a 35-23 victory over the New England Patriots. They clinch the number 2 seed in the AFC playoffs. They will host the Miami Dolphins, the 7 seed, in the first round of the playoffs at a date and time still to be determined as we tape this on Sunday. But of course, the big thing of today's game, obviously the first game since the cardiac arrest of Damar Hamlin on Monday night. His recovery motivating the team into this game, and boy, this game started out with a bang. A storybook start as Nyheim Hines returns the opening kickoff all the way for a touchdown. Just bedlam at Highmark Stadium. Thad Brown, what a way to start off this game for the Bills after everything that they've been through throughout the week.
Yeah, and the pregame, AJ, was as you'd expect. There were threes everywhere. Both teams, both owners. Actually, I shouldn't say that. Robert Kraft really wasn't wearing anything outwardly number 3, but Roger Goodell was. Brandon Beane had a Damar Hamlin jersey on. Every single one of the Bills players today walked in with some sort of Damar Hamlin shirt on. So obviously Hamlin was on everyone's mind. The signs, I mean, in the stands, you know, there was a sea of them. And when the game started with the Nyheim Hines kick return, you know, after all the Bills have been through, I mean, keep in mind for these football players who have played football for years, gone through hundreds and hundreds of plays in a game, thousands more in a practice. The last play these guys experienced was one where one of their teammates, one of their brothers, collapsed and went into cardiac arrest. So to come back out, I mean, they talked about the fact that it was going to be, you know, not the same old kind of football game coming out this week. For the Bills to get a touchdown off the bat, I mean, this is a team that openly admitted they prayed all week, you know, and what happened on Monday night is certainly the type of thing that would test your faith, might even shake a man down to the soul. Some of the prayers had already been answered with the way Hamlin had recovered, talked to the team, fired them up on Friday. But there was more than one football player on the Bills sideline who had wondered if God was intervening one more time when Nyheim Hines scored on the opening kick.
It was just spiritual, and I was going around and I was going around my team saying, God's real. Like, you can't draw that one up, write that one up any better. And I was just told by Kevin Curran, it's been 3 years and 3 months. Since the last kickoff return, so it's pretty cool.
To be honest with you, I thought before, in the days leading up to the game, wouldn't it be special if we could take that opening kickoff? And then when it happened, I was just like, respectfully, I wasn't surprised.
For that to start that game and like that, we were all like, all right, something is scarily weird, but it's a strong energy, and this team is just full of love. And, you know, from the angels like that have been watching us, and D-Ham's spirit and all of those prayers, like, it just seems like it's just overflowing to each and every one of us.
Big shout out to Damar. Even him, he's been one of the guys who've been most vocal about, telling me free Hines. He told me that every game. So the fact that we could do that while he, in his absence, it's honestly, you can't really make this up. This is wow.
Hines remarked afterward how impressed he was with the entire Bills organization and how they handled this entire ordeal during the week from the top down. Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott, every member of the staff. Hines said, I've never seen anything like it before. I'm happy to be here and happy to be a Buffalo Bill. And obviously he wasn't the only one. There was a ton of talk about, brotherhood and having each other's back and playing for the guy next to you. A lot of things that you've heard from the Bills before, but again, you understand why Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane built the culture they have, because when something like this happens, I don't think there's a team in the NFL that was more prepared, better prepared to deal with it. And, if you want to say that had a factor in the Bills winning this game, I mean, I'm sure that it wasn't nothing. Obviously, the Bills won the game because they're the better team, and they played like it in large stretches against the Patriots. But, certainly the ability for this team to pull together, and handle, an incident that I think would shake any football team was pretty impressive. AJ?
Yeah, I mean, that opening kickoff, so the way our schedule works out here, I'm back at home for the first half of the game. I come into the studio usually during halftime. I'm just sitting in my chair watching that, and literally, I don't think my jaw has ever dropped that quickly for a football play. Just, you watch it happen, and you're almost like, it's literally almost a pinch me moment. You're like, was this something that I dreamt about? Like, because this is happening. You're waiting for the flags. You're waiting for something to screw this up because it was just so good. And then finally, no flags on the field. The fans at Highmark Stadium embraced Nyheim Hines, and just everybody, around the world, because this story really, went global, national. Everybody was thinking about Damar Hamlin for this game, and just for it to start in this way, I believe NFL Rigged started trending on Twitter just because it was really scripted that perfectly for the way this game started off. And we have heard from, me and you were both at the press conferences on Thursday. We heard from Josh Allen. We heard from Dane Jackson, his college teammates. We heard from Mitch Morse. But we got to hear from some more players today. And we got to hear from Tre White, who is always, he doesn't speak to the media a lot, but whenever he does, it is wise to listen to what he says. I remember way back in the day when he signed that contract extension, very, elegant in his words about providing for his family and just everything like that. And when he spoke today about Damar Hamlin and everything that he's been through, I was really moved by what he said. Just, first of all, how close that defensive back room is, talking about it like, it was like a college team, things of that nature. And then just to hear him that this image has been replaying in his head over and over again. He's watching TV and he sees it pop up in a commercial. On the field, you could see that he was one of the most players just by his reaction. You saw the images on the field in Cincinnati. You saw just the look on his face, how shook he was by this. And you could tell that obviously it has stayed with him. Josh Allen said on Thursday that, when you put on those shoulder pads, it is going to change people. And I think it did change Tre White for a little bit. And he just talked about that. And he talked about, maybe the moment that really got me from the press conference was the fact that Damar Hamlin texted his group chat, his defensive backs, and was like, hey, I'm sorry I'm putting you guys through this. For someone to go through all of that and to be thinking about other people, to be thinking about his teammates as he is, still in a hospital bed and, to our latest knowledge, still in critical condition back in Cincinnati, for him to be thinking of his teammates in that moment, that says a lot about the brotherhood of that defensive back room, the brotherhood of this team, and just the type of person that Damar Hamlin is, that he is, while he is fighting for his life still at this point, that he is thinking of his teammates that.
And I think the thing that got me is right off the bat when Tre White started talking about this, he called it a bleep show. Now, he didn't say bleep. I'm trying to keep our show here G, or PG rated at least. But, the thing that I think Tre was opening a door to here is exactly how difficult it was. The Bills have been lauded for handling everything the right way and doing the right thing and being a good example. And none of those things are not true. But, the facade that the Bills put up, I think, kind of shielded everyone from how really difficult it was. And Tre White, didn't mind talking about that, about how hard and like you said, how it is, kind of changed the way that he's, seeing everything right now. He can't close his eyes without seeing it. And to that point, Tre White was one of the players on the field basically right next to Damar Hamlin when he went down. He saw everything that happened probably as raw as anyone on this Bills team saw it. So it's not a surprise that it affected him that way. And he talked about the connection this defensive back room has. And, I think for people at home to understand, yes, the Bills are a team, but in large part, many football teams, the guys who you're really tight with is your position group, because those are the ones that you're with constantly, every drill, every meeting. Those are the guys that are always with you. And White talked about how, when the DBs go out, they don't really talk about football. They hang, they get together, they break bread. And for one of their own to be the one who was affected by this, I don't think it should be a surprise that, Tre White should feel the way he did. But as you and I have both pointed out, Tre White talked about it in depth. Let's share some of that right now.
Anytime you have a bond with guys like that, and to see something like that happen, and for me, I know to see everything transpire from the hit to him getting up, to him falling, to everything. It's just something that I can't unsee. Every time I close my eyes, it replays. I try watching TV, and every time the TV go on commercial, that's the only thing that comes to my mind, just the vision of that. So it's been a tough week. Been a tough week for our whole team, but it's not about us right now. It's about Damar and his family, man, and just what they had to go through. His mom and his dad being right behind our bench and witnessing their son go through that, man. It's just it's tough, and hopefully we'll never have to go through this again. But Damar he's one of the most resilient like honest and just pure people that I've met, and it just shows what type of person he is.
AJ, you brought up the story where Damar Hamlin texted the defensive backs overnight, 2:30 in the morning, to apologize for putting them through this week. And obviously Damar is the one who's experienced more adversity, more pain, obviously. And Sean McDermott, pointed out that, that's just the type of guy Damar Hamlin is, something he didn't have to do. And he wanted to make sure Hamlin doesn't feel like he's responsible, because of course he's not. The Bills are here for him, not the other way around. But again, just shows how tight this team is. And really, this team is just as tight with the community. Sean McDermott also said that it was good for the Bills to be home, because it felt like it was sitting down to a table with the family to be here in Highmark Stadium with the fans today. AJ?
Yeah, and the way this shaped up, I think as much as you can talk about moving on, I think this timeline did actually work out well for the Bills, where they were able to have this game. They got a win. They were able to get the emotion for Damar Hamlin. And they are going to obviously, of course, play for Damar Hamlin for the rest of the season. There's no doubt about that. But now we get to gradually focus into the ultimate goal at hand for this team, which is to try and get to Arizona, win a Super Bowl. And talking about the football just for a little bit on today's game, obviously the Bills coming out with the win. It was not smooth from start to finish. I did kind of, Nyheim Hines kind of make me eat my words for a little bit about how there's so much energy, but the fact is you have to try and sustain that. They jumped out there, but then it kind of fizzled a little bit. They had their difficulties. The Patriots came down and tied it up. I think my big takeaways from this game is that, Josh Allen kind of found his deep ball a little bit again. He was able to hit Diggs over the top. He hit John Brown. We'll see how they decide to go with their wide receiver rotation. It still wasn't totally 100% clear whether or not they could have activated Cole Beasley from the practice squad, whether or not that third elevation counted, but they decided to go with John Brown, and his first catch since the 2020 season turned out to be a deep play touchdown. So maybe they try and keep him up for that deep play threat. Allen said after the game, obviously it's good to take the check down, take the cheese, things like that, but maybe he's got to open back up a little bit again when those shots are available. And then the second point, I'll stay on the offense just real quick. The turnovers, once again, Allen, a red zone turnover, Singletary, a very costly turnover, right after that interception. So that's, certainly something they need to clean up. And then just the defense. Obviously, it has been through so much, so it's tough to pin too much blame on them. But this is a defense that at times got carved up by Mac Jones, with Matt Patricia calling the plays. And at this point in the season, we are looking at big picture here. If Mac Jones can do that, just imagine what Patrick Mahomes can do that. Just imagine what Joe Burrow. We saw that for a little bit in the first, half of a quarter on Monday night. That's something where I don't know how they clean this up, because obviously they are, Micah Hyde, Damar Hamlin, obviously. There's not a lot coming through that door right now, so they've got to figure that one out, Thad.
Yeah, that was one thing I thought about a lot. I'll start with the defense too. And even this week, as we're going through the, covering Damar Hamlin and all the different twists and turns and following his recovery, at some point, the football was again going to become, I don't know about taking center stage, but certainly becoming something everybody talks about. And you start looking at this Bills secondary right now. Jordan Poyer is still wearing a giant, brace on his arm, so he's playing somewhat hurt. You're now down to your third safety. Micah Hyde, Damar Hamlin. Today it was Dean Marlowe. Tre White still coming back from the injury. Leslie Frazier said it a couple times. He's probably not going to be 100% this year. And Kyrie Elam was, the guy who got beat on Devontae Parker's touchdown. He and Dane Jackson on the other side have not been superb. So that secondary is a big, big question. And, like you said, AJ, if Mac Jones can put up 220 and 3 touchdowns, and yeah, he had 3 interceptions, but, 2 of those were late when you might want to call it desperation time. The Bills' path to the Super Bowl is very likely going to be Tua, potentially, but certainly Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, followed by Joe Burrow and the Bengals' core of incredible receivers, followed by the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. So, Mac Jones causing this defense a problem should set off big-time alarm bells for this defense, because, like you said, there's no Von Miller up front to just erase a pass at the quarterback, to be able to put a ton of pressure on. And really, Mac Jones, outside of the early sack from Greg Rousseau, did not have much pressure on him in this game. So, I think that is going to be a concern going into the postseason. As for the offense, I'm kind of conflicted on how to read this today. On the one hand, it's great that Josh Allen hit a couple deep balls. It is great that Stephon Diggs had 100 yards and a touchdown and was, the number one receiver again. Although I will admit that on the field, I kid you not, on the play where Stephon Diggs caught his touchdown, before, while the Bills were in the huddle, I remarked to the photographers next to me, hey, is Stephon Diggs still playing in this game? Because I haven't seen him for a while. Because up until, that play, he was pretty invisible in the second half. So, look, hey, it was one play. He got another catch after that. Regardless, the total look at this one, 7 for 104 and a touchdown, that's your number one receiver. That's absolutely solid. That's what you want to see out of Stephon Diggs. We had a Gabe Davis dropping again in this game. His hands have been questionable all year. I mean, he had, 8,000 targets for 4 catches today. I think when you look at this, the offense got the job done. Was it 2 lightning strikes and 1 decent drive? Yes. But they still scored plenty of points to win this game. I know it was only 21, but with Nyheim Hines running every other kickback for a touchdown, they only got so many possessions to have the ball. So I think offensively you feel good about this game. Josh Allen was under some pressure, but it wasn't awful. There was some success in the run game. The Patriots defense is really, really good. And the other thing to consider with this was already going to be a short week for the Bills, Monday to a Sunday game. Patriots had a full week getting ready for this one. Then you throw in the Damar Hamlin situation. I don't know how focused the Bills were on football all week long. I mean, I don't know how Tuesday or Wednesday you sit down and break down third down situations with Patriots defensive backs when you're worried about your friend and your teammate lying in a hospital in critical condition in a coma. So no matter what we might think of how the football looked in this game, I think the big caveat we got to remember, this is probably not the Bills in terms of full 100% prep going into this game.
Yeah, and the good thing to point out, Taron Johnson suffered a concussion, went into the protocol on Monday night. He played. He said he felt fine afterwards, and he played really well. That was, one of the big, standouts of that defensive performance. And then, like we said, when we talk big picture, we kind of had this, this question going throughout the entire season about, different ways the Bills can win, keeping their fastball. Well, they don't got Von Miller anymore. They don't have their secondary anymore. They don't got the receivers other than Stephon Diggs, really. I think right now they might just have their fastball. And I think almost to a point, you can, if you look at Josh Allen's stat line after a game, I think you're going to almost 100% be able to figure out whether or not they won that game, because this team's going to go as far as Josh Allen could take them, because he's got a lot on his plate with all the things that have happened around them. So it's on to QB1 to get this happen. So looking forward, first round of the playoffs for the Bills. They get another divisional opponent in the Miami Dolphins. Of course, this will be the 3rd time they see them this season. They lost in the heat in September. They beat them in December. It's tough to analyze this game too much just with the quarterback questions in Miami. Teddy Bridgewater didn't play. Tua Tagovailoa, obviously in the concussion protocol. Skylar Thompson did enough to get it done. I wasn't watching that game too intently. I had it on Red Zone at times, but the fact of the matter is they won that game. They beat the Jets without scoring a touchdown. Obviously, the Jets have a really good defense, but still, you don't like to see your team score 0 touchdowns the game before the playoffs. So it'll be tough to figure this one out. Right now, the line is at -9.5 in most places, 10 in some. So that's what the prognosticators are probably thinking. It's probably a line without Tua in the picture. Thad, your initial takeaways as the Bills try and start their road to the Super Bowl.
I want to ask, AJ, if you watch the game on Red Zone, did either of those teams ever get in the Red Zone? I mean, did you ever see the game? Did it ever appear on Red Zone, right? They have to be inside the 20 to make Red Zone, right? Well, look, I think it's pretty easy to talk about how this Dolphins game will be. If it's not Tua or Teddy Bridgewater, and really probably if it's not Tua, the Bills should roll in this game. In fact, if the Bills get to face Skylar Thompson a week from, or next weekend, whatever day that will be, then, yeah, the Bills will not have gotten a bye week, but it's only because they actually have to come out here and dress up in uniform. It'll actually really be a bye. On the flip side, if Tua Tagovailoa can play, well, we saw what happened. He came up here and gave the Bills a game not too long ago, losing 32-29. That will be a difficult test, and it will be more difficult because the Bills had Damar Hamlin for that game. They won't have him for next week. So, as we talked about, if the Patriots receivers can cause the Bills secondary this much of a headache, you can bet Miami will too. And it will be everything the Bills can handle in this wild card game if Tua Tagovailoa will play. That'll be something we follow all week long. For today, this was a celebration of Damar Hamlin. This was a celebration of everybody who contributed to that. All the trainers and athletic or medical personnel were honored before the game. It was a nice gesture for sure. And, the Bills feel good about what happened this week after going through, one of the hardest weeks anyone can ever remember in football history. The one thing I will say, when you talk about this team, in the press conference today afterward, they mentioned God at least a dozen times. there is a belief here that this team can come together, and God is certainly a part of it for them, but each other is a part of it as well. And I think after this week, going through what they've gone through, coming out on the other end with a win against a team that needed this to keep their season alive. Let's not overlook that either. New England was playing with every motivation they possibly could muster to win this game, and the Bills still won semi-comfortably. To get through this week, that's the kind of belief that'll carry you through a postseason, no matter, what kind of guys are on the field, what your depth chart says, what your X's and O's say. So, whether or not that happens remains to be seen, but you can bet on the fact the Bills feel as confident as ever going into this postseason. AJ?
And you mentioned the training staff who obviously helped save Damar Hamlin's life. John Brown, after his touchdown, gave his touchdown ball to Denny Kellington, the assistant athletic trainer who provided CPR to Hamlin on the field. So a great gesture from him. As the Bills get this win and look forward to the playoffs, we will be with them every step of the way on RochesterFirst.com. News 8. We'll see if we get another Buffalo Game Day recap just based on the schedule. As we tape this right now, we do not know, but by the time you listen or watch this, there's a chance that you know more than we do right now. Well, sometimes you do all the time. So we will be there next time, or not. But until then, for Thad Brown in Orchard Park, I'm AJ Feldman. Thank you for watching Buffalo Game Day Recap. Have a great rest of your football weekend.